What's good, guys? Welcome back to another video. Last week ended up being absolutely spot on, where we called the market maker sell model at exactly the hour when news came on. You retrace back into the CIC and down you go. This was called perfectly, and I can definitely see from the comment section that a lot of you have managed to make money off of that call. So congrats, that was a really great ending to a really great week. And this time around, we're going to try to replicate what we did on last Friday. Right before I get into it though, we ended last month with 9 wins and 4 losses. That puts our total, since I started publicly tracking this since February, to 97 wins out of the last 122 calls that I've made here on YouTube. That puts us overall at a 79.5% win rate. The reason I mention this is just to give you confidence, if you're new to the channel, that yeah, sure, we may lose sometimes. For example, last month was probably one of the worst months in terms of overall kind of win rate. For example, because with 4 losses, I only got 9 wins. And for the most part, there are also less calls last month compared to, every month from before, where, May was an exceptional month. And the reason why this is the case, to be honest, is just market conditions. Last month is a perfect example of why I always emphasize the importance of, understanding your market conditions and taking it into account. Because so far, if you take a look at the weekly chart, this 1, 2, 3, 4, that's last month, you basically took out the previous all-time high and you started retracing. And the moment you go down to the daily chart, outside of shorts, you can see that there were quite a few, choppy candles, right? There were at least 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 7, maybe 10 days where things are just, quite unclear. And on those days, it was very tough for me to make a call. And so we played it a little bit more safe. But even on the times where I did, kind of make a call and to take a trade, it ended up with more losses rather than wins, or at least more losses than usual. And so this is the important part about you just understanding the market condition that you're in. Last month is a perfect example of what I always say, when the market conditions are not present and when you don't have just optimal market conditions, you take it easy and you wait until better conditions present themselves. And then you will probably end up with, months like May and months like, July, May and April, where, that is exceptional by all standards. But anyways, now that that part is out of the way, let's get into the weekly analysis. So just starting things off on the weekly chart, one thing that you must realize is that we have just filled in this weekly order block right here. And so there is a pretty high likelihood that price is going to bounce from this point onwards. As for when it will happen, I have no idea. Price could literally spend 1, 2, 3, 4, however many weeks just within this order block. And as long as you do not break below this order block, at least from the weekly perspective, you're still good, right? The uptrend is still intact. Everything is still good. Even if I zoom out for a little bit, this is going to become much more clear. These are high highs and high lows. And so until at the very minimum, this low is taken out, nothing has changed in regards to the bull market. Everything is still intact. And we expect to buy the dip here for prices to continue higher. And one of the key lessons that I kind of want to impart to you, hopefully, is this I had to learn the hard way, which is you want to ideally be trading what the market is telling you objectively rather than what you want to see from the markets. What I mean by that is a lot of people, I've gotten so many texts, so many DMs and so many comments recently of people asking me hey, do I think the top of the bull run is over? But the reality is, doesn't matter. I don't really know what to tell you because sure, I may have my own opinion, but that doesn't mean that my trading decisions are going to reflect that opinion. Now, the reason why that is the case is because based on every observable metric that I can see on the charts right now, price is bullish, right? And until that bullishness is over, I'm still just going to buy high and sell higher. Sometimes a lot of it, what I've also realized, a lot of the times where people ask me that question, it's because they probably entered into crypto somewhere within the last 3 to 6 months, where, for the last 2 years, this is going on for 2 years now, you would have done exceptionally well if you just bought every dip and just sold higher. And so if you're coming at the top, right now, what may feel like the top, I understand where you're coming from, but my advice is always going to remain the same. There is no point trying to make a prediction on when the bull market's going to be over, because some people said the bull market was over here. People said the bull market was over here. People said the bull market was over there. And all three, every single, person that, had an opinion about this and actually made a financial decision based on this prediction of theirs, well, they would have missed out on all of this. And so, sure, there is always the risk that the bull market is over, but at least for now, what you can see from the chart is that just buy high and sell higher, because so far, not only is market structure intact, but order flow is also intact. And so we just trade it accordingly. So now that that's over, Weekly chart, again, you're in some kind of a bullish order block right now. I don't know if this week will be the week that bounces. The reason why I say that with a tone of concern is because this weekly candle, the last weekly candle, closed bearish, which means our weekly bias this week should be bearish. But the problem with that is that we are in some kind of weekly order block, which means based on this, we expect price to go up. Based on this, we expect price to go down. As for which signal is stronger, I would like to think that this signal is stronger because this is a level that I have been calling to get hit basically since 3 weeks ago when we were here. Like I was already saying, like, okay, price is going to retrace back into this pivot gap or this order block. And so far, 3 weeks later, it's finally happening. And another thing you need to realize about these high time frame moves is that they are high time frame moves for a reason. It takes time to happen. It took 3 weeks just to get back into this level. And it wouldn't be surprising if it took another, couple of weeks, maybe 3 weeks before we finally start showing a really clear sign that we are bouncing out of it. Now, I'm not saying necessarily that it's going to take that long, but like, just don't be surprised if it takes that long. Now we're going to try and break it down on the lower time frame just to see if there are certain conditions that, when met, we can jump into the market sooner rather than waiting for like a weekly confirmation. So taking a look at the daily chart, clearly the order flow is bearish. Like this is a bearish order block, price broke down, came back up, failed to break above, and a boom, now you form a new low, which means that at the moment, for the foreseeable future, this is going to be a bearish order block that price is very likely to get rejected from, and sub price needs to break above this level before any sort of reversal can possibly happen. Now, just to give you an idea of how this is going to play out, like if you take a look at the 1 hourly, the way I was able to call the market maker sell model and the way that I was able to call the top here is this is a bearish order flow, right? This is a bearish order block, price breaks lower, comes back up into the bearish order block, fails. So this is the first order block that price manages to break out of, but the problem is it happened in 1, 2, 3 impulses. This is a typical market maker sell model, and that's where you ended up dumping. And eventually you got rejected from this order block right here. Now, ideally for bullishness, you would have liked to see price break above that order block, come down to treat like the previous resistance, flip it into potential support, and then for price to, continue higher from there. Problem is that this is exactly what we're having on the daily chart at the moment, where you have the first order block, but ideally, realistically, we want to see this level get broken first before we can just confidently say that, yeah, okay, bull market is back intact and we're going to continue to go up. Now, I'm sure this is going to happen. This is bound to happen sometime within the next 2, 3, 4. I don't know how long it'll take, but it's very likely to happen actually within the next 2 weeks. Why? Because on September the 16th, we're going to have the next FOMC event. And this is when Jerome Powell has at least based on current market odds, he has a 75% chance of reducing the interest rate of the United States dollar. And this is a really good sign because the lower the interest rates, like basically risk on assets thrive on low interest rates. So stuff like the S&P 500, NASDAQ, the Bitcoin, like crypto, whatever thing that is risky, the lower the interest rates, it provides the best environment for these assets to default. And if Jerome Powell is going to drop the interest rates, at least with a very high degree of certainty, then we can expect a bullish move to happen sometime within the next 2 to 3 weeks. So that's kind of the timeline that we can look at. And so within the next 2 to 3 weeks, if something like this happens, we can realistically expect, price to actually go higher. But again, like so far, bearish order flow. So whatever longs that we take here doesn't mean that we cannot take longs. It's just we need to be careful and we need to be cautious because like technically the trend is still pointing downwards. Any sort of pump is just going to give you an opportunity, at least based on the current market structure, current order flow, to sell high so that you can, for price to drop lower. And that's where you can take profit on your shorts. Based on that, like another thing that we need to take into account is this low right here. Now, if you take a look at this previous swing low right here, this was recently swept earlier today. Now, the only issue that I can see with this one is that on the Binance chart, this was not necessarily swept, or at least I don't think so. So the low of this candle, if you take a look at the top over here, the low of this candle is at 107,200 and the low of this candle is 107,211. So technically on Binance, this low has not yet been swept. So these are relatively equal lows, but on Bybit, which so far has been taking the lead in terms of perpetuals kind of like volume, it has been swept. And so are we going to revisit that area? I'm truly not sure. This also falls into the fact that today's Monday. If you guys have ever heard of the Asia, London, and New York session, you know that we always try to prioritize trading either within the London session or the New York session. And there's a good reason for that. With the Asia session, because it's the first session of the day, it's a little bit tougher to predict what price is going to do or like what kind of behavior it is going to show. There is a reason why the Asia session tends to be called the opening range of the day. And Monday is a lot like the Asia session, where Monday is kind of like the opening range of the week. So yes, while we may be able to get some Mondays right, for the most part, Mondays are really tough to predict, or at least cover, than a day like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And this is again further reflected by the fact that most of the news days coming this week around is going to be on Tuesday, USD, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so already, like good news, the good news here is that this week we have 4 pieces of news throughout the week. And so this already makes this week a much higher probability trading week than the last week, where if you remember, the only 2 days where we properly made money from trading was on Friday. And I believe now if you remember from last week, we only had 2 news events the entire week. And Friday was a really good day for us because movement was super key. The other day that we managed to make money was, I believe, on Wednesday. Yeah, I believe on Wednesday. But that was a bit of an anomaly. But the main day that we made the most money was on Friday, which is News Day. And this is going to be a recurring trend that you will hear throughout the entirety of this channel. Like every time I make a video, I always talk about the importance of news days and the importance of trading on a news day. Now, the reason why this is the case is that, now the way that I always like to explain this is that in trading, you're always dealing with a variety of variables, and it's almost too much for you to do anything when you're dealing with this many kind of moving parts. So obviously you have whether or not price is going up or down, right? Just direction, how far up is it going to go, how far low is it going to drop, and then you have timing. Like when is this likely to happen and how long is this move going to last? So the beauty of news is that it kind of takes away one of those variables, which is you pretty much know for certain, or you pretty much know with a high degree of probability that, let's say on 8:30 a.m. New York time on Friday, something's going to happen, right? A move is going to happen, at least around that time. And so it kind of narrows down the variables so that you can focus more on figuring out the direction as well as how far, is it going to go in that direction. So you can purely focus on the price action rather than trying to predict when things are going to happen. The other beauty of news is that they increase the probability of the move by a lot. So like last Friday, what you saw was a really clean move. You got a market maker sell model that was setting up starting Thursday, and then on Friday, back, right? Clean. A lot of the times when you run into issues with, let's say you understand order block theory, you understand fair value gap theory, but then prices seem to, always play out as though, but then your win rate isn't as high as what I'm, for example, what I would be able to achieve, or other traders that you see on social media is able to achieve. A lot of that boils down to timing. Like the same concept applied at different timings. Let's say 8 a.m. during the New York session versus 8 p.m. in the New York session. Same exact concept. The price action could look the exact same, but one of those is going to get invalidated 9 times out of 10. And there's a reason for that. It is not just about price action. It is quite literally behavior of price at a very specific timing throughout the day or throughout the week. And if you would like to learn more about this, feel free to click the first link in the description box below. That is where you will learn the exact system that I have been able to use to achieve an 80% win rate over the last 7 months, basically. But otherwise, let's get back into the video with the, the prediction of the day, I guess, or the trade call of the day. So earlier we were already talking about the fact that today's Monday. And so again, the price action may be clear, but then just because of the fact that it's Monday means that there's a higher likelihood that it's going to fail. Just to give you an example, I think throughout my last 8 or 9 Mondays where I've been making calls, I think 6 out of 8 of those have been losing calls where, there is some kind of move that happens on Monday usually, but then because of the fact that it's Monday, it doesn't play out the way that, we envision it. And so for the most part, Mondays are a very losing day, at least following my system. So whatever, call, if I do make a call today, just take it with a grain of salt. Just understand that, if possible, in fact, today, I'm probably not even going to be trading. I have a dinner later and with a bunch of friends. And so, yeah, Monday is pretty much just a weekend for me. Most Mondays, there is no news. And because of that, probability is low. I just take it easy. Never too late to jump into the markets starting from, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, especially because this week we have news on all of those days. But anyways, going back into just what we can observe from the daily chart is that, again, liquidity has been swept. So that's also why price action, or why price is kind of pumping at the limit. The problem with that is that you are running into bearish resistance right now. So going long doesn't quite make sense because of the overall order flow, as we've discussed previously. But going short also doesn't quite make sense because you have taken out liquidity. But let's try to hop into the lower time frames to see if there is a setup that is a little bit more clear. On the 1 hourly, you are running into also a 1 hourly bearish kind of order block, and you have just swept out these relatively equal highs over here. Again, this low has been swept. And so this becomes a strong low. And so more likely than not, if price action turns bullish right now, this is very likely to hold. Again, like because you have formed a change in state of delivery on the 1 hourly chart, this is now also in, potentially a CIC. And so in the event that you retrace back into this block of candles here, you would be looking at this as a potential bullish order block for price to actually go higher from. Problem is, again, like you are in overall bearish short flow. And so like, is the right decision to go short? Is the right decision to go long? Honestly, super tough. Now, the way that I would probably approach this day is I would just trade on the lower time frames. Officially, the call is going to be some kind of fill of the bearish order block right there. But then you want to look for some kind of 5-minute change in state of delivery. Ideally, you want some kind of strong high. And then once you get that change in state of delivery, basically when order flow is bearish, you want to target 2R. And like, if there is a trade that you can take today, it's probably that one. Me, I'm going to try to avoid this. Again, like I like to trade on news days. I just realized over time, like it's not about the quantity of trades that you take. It's perfectly fine to take some days off. And it's more about like saving your ammunition for the high quality days. Those days where, price action is just so clean and you're able to take full advantage of it. I can reasonably say there's a 60-40, maybe 70-30 chance that price is going to, like the setup for today is probably towards the short side. But again, me, I prefer just a higher probability day. Not going to break my promise though about the altcoin. If you take a look at Solana right now, you have just gotten a daily change in state of delivery, right? With this candle right here on last Thursday, you've gotten a daily change in state of delivery. This entire blue box, starting from like $200 all the way down to like 170, is going to become a bullish order block. In fact, you can even narrow it down to just the value area. So pay attention to Solana. It's starting to break out now compared to a lot of other altcoins, which are still, kind of lagging behind. Solana's actually looking pretty good. And so all you need is a couple of like, bullish changes to state of delivery. For example, on the 1 hourly chart, the level to watch is going to be 206. Once you get a break above this block right here, retrace, and you can start heading higher. This is all on the 1 hourly chart. So that's going to be a setup just to, kind of reward you for staying all the way down here. And if you watch under this point so far, leave a comment. It truly means a lot to me that you're willing to sit through 20 minutes of listening to some stranger from the internet just rant. Just understand that I read every single comment. If you have any questions, if you like to, whatever, like I read every single comment and I reply to every single comment. But until then, like I'm gonna see you guys tomorrow, and feel free to follow me on my Twitter, because if there's any updates on how I would play today, I usually post it on Twitter, and I will leave the link in the description box below. This is where I'm posting like altcoin calls, as well as just updates on whatever's happening on the charts. But aside of that, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Ciao, ciao.